All right, folks, you know what time it is. We are back. The MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show is in session for the 2024-25 season. We got a lot to talk about today, including bringing on Coach Kevin Covert, new head coach of the PCA Paladins boys basketball team, and we got more to talk about right here. The MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show begins right now. Okay, I just want to get started by reminding you all to be sure to hit the subscribe button to the TSJW Network YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button right now. This is the TSJW Network YouTube channel, MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show, October 30th of 2024. And we appreciate you joining us for another season of MSAHA basketball coverage right here on the TSJW Network. So I want to start off this week with the first episode of the season. We do have a guest coming on. That is Coach Kevin Covert. He's the head coach, new head coach of the PCA Paladins boys basketball team, and we're excited about talking with him on the show. But I do want to explain a little bit about the new aspect of this show. So we will only cover 18U basketball this year. So we will cover 18U girls and 18U boys. We will not talk about 16U or 14U on this show. We may, under certain circumstances, like maybe the show right before the 16U tournament, right before the 14U tournament, we may kind of talk about some of the top teams or whatever, but we are going to focus on 18U this year for girls and boys, and so just wanted to start off by making you aware of that. So talking a little bit about some girls basketball around the MSAHA. Obviously, Laurel has been the team to beat for years in this league. This year, they're losing a lot, losing three major seniors. They're top players on their team from last season. They're losing them, but they've got some girls that are coming up that are good young players, but will they be able to win all the games in the same dominant fashion as they have before? Seems unlikely, but we'll see how Laurel will do this year. They have yet to play a conference game in 18U girls, but we are interested to see how Laurel does. They've got Cliff Jenkins as their head coach. Coach Cliff had coached the boys there at Laurel to 2 MSAHA titles back-to-back before he stepped aside in 2022. Now he is back as the 18U girls, 16U girls, and 14U girls coach for the Laurel Lady Nighthawks. Also, the Muddy River Counselors now are rising up as a girls program, coming off a big win over Macomb last night by a very big margin, record-setting for the Counselors. Interested to see how that team plays. PCA and Meridian had a tight matchup just last week. Interested to see what happens with them and kind of how the standings shake out. But that's what we've seen so far. We're going to talk more about 18U girls a little later on, about some scores that we've had so far and some games we have upcoming. But looking at the boys, we have 2 new teams in the conference. We got the Macomb Gators and we got the Royal Hurricanes. Now, the Macomb Gators do have girls as well, 18U girls. Royal Hurricanes have younger girls, but they've got mostly boys. The Royal Hurricanes are from DeSoto County, so in the Olive Branch area. That's where the Hurricanes reside. Obviously, Macomb is in Macomb. They're in Summit, Mississippi, is where they play their games at Southwest Mississippi Community College. It's where the Gators are. The Gators are in, I do believe, their 3rd season as a basketball program, but their 1st year as a member of the MSAHA. And so both those teams have joined the conference. So now the conference is up to 10 organizations. So 10. This conference is getting bigger and bigger, and it is great to see the expansion that we've had in the MSAHA. And so last night, we're going to talk about Muddy River Counselors and the Macomb Gators. They had a game last night, but just to tell you right now, the Macomb Gators look good. They look like they are ready to jump right into the action in the competition in this league. I think they're ready for this league, and they're ready to make a run at it. Macomb looked very good last night. All right, the game is still fully up there, the Muddy River Counselors and the Macomb Gators. The Counselors TV coverage of that is still up on the TSJW Network YouTube channel, so you can check that out. PCA takes care of business in their first two conference games. They defeat the Jackson Victors 66-38. Also defeat the Meridian Flyers at home 75-41. And we're going to talk to Coach Kevin Covert a little later, and he'll talk to us a little bit about his team. Now, you're talking about PCA. They were the runners-up in the MSAHA last year and losing to the Muddy River Counselors, but losing by narrow margins. PCA kept competitive with the Counselors last season. They did lose some players. They lost Caden Comminge and Timmy Singletary, two seniors, two big impact seniors for their team. They are no longer a part of the Paladins anymore. Now you also have a coaching change with Coach Kevin Covert coming in, replacing Coach Brian Comminge from last season. So how will PCA be able to bounce back and be able to adjust to the new changes? We will have to see. But Scotty Covert is back, obviously, with his dad coming in to coach. He is playing, and he is a big impact player. We saw that a couple years ago. Took a year off playing homeschool basketball. Now he's back with the Paladins. So it'd be interesting to see that team and how they play. The Counselors rolling so far, and we'll talk about some of the scores we've seen from them so far. They look pretty good. Lost some key players from last year. Lost Rydell Brakefield, so Rydell Brakefield graduated out. William Leach, those are two starters. Also, they lost Matthew Vaverka and Justin Bickham. Those are four seniors that were in the rotation that they lose from last year, but they still keep their three players that were in the top five in the conference in Caleb Sanders, Samiger Williams, and Luke Sanders. Those three still playing very well and have improved their games, and we will talk about that a little later as well. So kind of talking about some games that we've had so far. So let's talk a little bit about some girls basketball. We've had two games so far in 18U girls. We've had the Meridian Flyers taking on the PCA Paladins. Now this game happened in Lacombe, Louisiana. This was on Saturday. Very close game. Came down to the finish. PCA able to pull out the win by 3 points, 32-29. So now we already know that Meridian and PCA is going to be competitive. Meridian brought back a lot of the same team that they had last year. Meridian, they brought back a lot of the players they had last year. Also added one of the players from the Scott County Flames. Now Scott County playing in younger divisions, no longer playing 18U. And they have one of their players now. Mackenzie Richmond is the player that just joined the Flyers. So Meridian probably a little stronger than they were last year. Last year they were competitive. A very close game with PCA. PCA lost some players, but they also were able to gain a couple as well. Interesting to see how PCA, obviously they're close in ability, but it's interesting to see how they rank up against Laurel and the Muddy River. Where do they line up? And that comes to the other game, the 18U girls. Muddy River Counselors defeating the Macomb Gators 54-11. So a 43-point win for the Counselors girls basketball team. The Counselors have been bottom of the conference ever since they started just a couple of years ago. This is the fourth season of Muddy River Counselors girls basketball, and now might want to be, looking like you might be competitive this year. Adding three sisters from Scott County with the Crenshaw family. John Crenshaw joining the boys for the Muddy River Counselors, which is a good addition as well for the Counselors. So definitely beefing up the team and not losing too much from last year's girls team as well for the Counselors girls. They defeat the Macomb Gators 54-11. So Counselors 1-0, Macomb 0-1, PCA 1-0, Meridian 0-1 in conference. Laurel has yet to play. We will talk about the games that they're going to play coming up. 18U boys action so far. It started off on October 19th. PCA and Jackson, and that took place in Byron, Mississippi, where the Victors now play. PCA was able to win this game 66-38, nearly winning by 30 points. PCA did a very good job against the Victors, able to control that ball game and get the win, take care of business. So the Victors last year had no 18U had no players that were 18U only. So they didn't lose anybody. They were able to gain people. So PCA being able to hold off the victors like that is impressive, and being able to win by nearly 30 points makes you think the Paladins are back in action. Also happening on October 19th, Tupelo Titans and the Meridian Flyers. Now this season, last year the Tupelo Titans tried to compete in 16U. They had one player over 16, so they ended up playing non-conference all season. So we didn't really talk about Tupelo much last year. But Tupelo's back now, and they are competing in 18U. And they made some noise here, starting off getting a win over Meridian. 61-52, 9-point victory for the Titans. So interested to see how all this will pan out. And now that will bring us to another score with Meridian. Meridian took on the Royal Hurricanes. Meridian was able to get that win by a score of 58-42, so the Flyers were able to get in the win column in 18U boys, and that was against the new team, the Royal Hurricanes. And so that put Meridian at 1-1 after that ball game. And now another Meridian Flyers score from October 26th. Meridian losing to PCA on the road by 34 points. PCA 75, Meridian 41. So PCA taking care of business in their first two conference games. 2-0 in conference, getting 2 wins, 1 win by nearly 30 points, 1 win by over 30 points. Interesting to see where Meridian, Tupelo, Jackson, where those teams kind of end up landing, and then how PCA is able to match up against the Counselors, because obviously the game between those two teams for the last 3 seasons have been big and highly anticipated. Yet again, that's going to be the case. Also on October 26th, the Royal Hurricanes took on the Muddy River Counselors. Now, this was the Counselors' opening day ball game. Counselors hosted the game. Counselors won that game 101-36, and this broke the record for the Counselors for the most points they have ever gotten in a game, and they win this game by 65 points. Now, I will say this game is still up on the TSJW Network YouTube channel. One thing the Counselors have this year is that there is nobody on the bench that goes in and does poorly. Everybody comes in the game and continues to do damage. So when the Counselors are able to get out to big leads, their bench keeps the lead. They keep it going. And this happened against the Royal Hurricanes. They're able to run away with it and win by 65 points, 101-36. That would be a quite intimidating score. Well, last night, October 29th, the Muddy River Counselors go down to Summit, Mississippi to take on the Macomb Gators, who are not a new organization, but a new team to the conference. So the Counselors and the Gators had played each other previously, and it was 2 years ago where Macomb hosted Muddy River. That final score was 66-23 win for the Counselors. And so this was before Macomb was a part of the conference. Now the Gators joined the conference. I think they do believe that they can compete with the conference. And boy, were they right. I mean, they kept the Counselors to low scores at the beginning of the game. First quarter ends, Counselors lead 13-8. Halftime, Counselors have an 8-point lead, 27-19. But then the Counselors run away with it. Muddy River wins 71-48, a 23-point win on the road against the Macomb Gators. But one thing that the Gators have that's going to be tough, that proved tough for the Counselors at certain points in the game, and will definitely prove tough for the MSAHA conference, is the height. The height is something else. Macomb has 2 players over 6'5", and then the rest of their guys aren't short either. They've got the ball handling. We'll have to see how their shooting is, but they're able to get to the basket and score with the length and with the size. One player that really stood out in that game was Sean Davis, number 25 for the Macomb Gators. I mean, he had a great game. He's able to finish with 19 points on the ball game, come up short with a loss by 23 points, but still Macomb impressive and definitely putting the conference on notice. You're talking about the defending champion Muddy River Counselors that Macomb was playing against, and they're able to put up a good fight, losing by 23 points at home. But the Counselors, I mean, a lot of the game was right there at 12, 14-point difference there. And the Counselors really had to put forth their best effort to get this win, and they were able to win 71-48, leaving the Counselors with a 2-0 conference record. So that wraps up what we've seen so far in the 18U ranks from girls' side and the boys' side. So now we're going to talk a little bit about some upcoming games that we are about to see this upcoming week. So we'll have this show. We plan on having the show every week. And we'll see when this show posts. We're recording it right now, October 30th on the Wednesday. We're hoping to either get it up tonight, most likely tomorrow, October 31st, but we will see. Meridian and Hattiesburg. So we have that on Friday night, November 1st, Meridian against Hattiesburg. Now this has grown into being a contest that is close a lot, especially in the girls. It's been close a lot in the last few years. And talking about 18U girls right now, kind of previewing that, Hattiesburg has lost a lot from last year. Lost a couple of seniors. Also, from last year to this year, I mean, one of them was Catherine Gigi, who they lost. But they also lost the whole Gigi family with Coach Chris Gigi not coaching anymore, and obviously his daughter Maddie not on the team anymore either. And so that takes away a lot of the heart and soul of the team that you had last year. So they're having to regroup and get back going. But we'll see how Hattiesburg does. They're going to host Meridian. They might shock everybody. Might be able to get a win there. And Meridian coming off of a tough loss to PCA, close game. I would think that Meridian would be able to have this one because Meridian, I think, has a pretty strong team. They're headed up by Scott Sherman, their head coach, and so interested to see how that goes. And we'll keep you updated on the scores. The scores will be available on the TSJW Network website. That's tsjwnetwork.net. Check out the website. So that's Meridian and Hattiesburg, 18U girls. 18U boys side, so Meridian and Hattiesburg. Now, Hattiesburg's down on the 18U boys side as well this year. Last year, they had Michael Barnes and Braden Dry and Peyton Roth. Those were three seniors they had that were main players for their team. All three of those guys no longer on the team, graduating out. So now what do? You still have Charlie Cotton. You still have Keller Russell, among others that were players that got in on last year's team. And you had a team that made it to the 16U championship game. So Hattiesburg was in the 16U championship game against the Muddy River Counselors last year. And so with that crew of players, it seems like you might be able to put together a competitive squad. We will have to see that. Hattiesburg's a little down this year. Meridian, I would say Meridian's on the upward trajectory. They're head coached by Lewis Coker. His son, Brody Coker, very good player, and he's on the come up. Cooper Franklin, back from injury from last year. He finished off the season with an injury. Glad to see him back in action. Also wanted to give a shout-out to the Meridian Flyers. Their uniforms are smooth. I saw a few pictures of the new Meridian Flyers uniforms, and those things are smooth. I like them for sure. Credit to whoever got that done. And so they definitely look good. But so anyway, Meridian and Hattiesburg is going to play in 18U boys as well. I'm interested to see what happens because Hattiesburg has been beating Meridian the past few years and have ended in better seeding situations than the Flyers. Last year, Meridian was the 6th seed in the conference while Hattiesburg was at the 3 seed. They played each other in the first round of the MSAHA tournament, in which it was completely dominated by Hattiesburg. They won by over 30 points. So it'd be interesting to see what happens in that game. I don't really know what to think with that one. Then on Saturday, November 2nd, Tupelo taking on the Muddy River Counselors. Tupelo Titans and the Muddy River Counselors. Now this is very interesting because the Counselors and the Titans have not played since 2022. 2021 rather, because it was in December. And that was the first season that Tupelo was in the MSAHA. And the first game that Tupelo had in the MSAHA was against the Muddy River Counselors, hosting them. Counselors won that ball game 75-49. Then the next time the two teams played, Counselors won 70-48. And this is before the Counselors were up at the top of the conference. At that year, they ended up being the 5 seed in the conference. Now, Counselors host Tupelo. And this should be interesting. Tupelo right now 1-0 in conference after beating the Meridian Flyers 61-52. And now Tupelo, you have a lot of the guys on their team have gotten older, gotten bigger, gotten better since the last time they played the Counselors. Now, obviously, the Counselors are way better than they were at that time. So I'm interested to see what happens. These two teams have not played each other since then. So it'll be their third matchup. And the Counselors won both times in 2022. See what happens this year. I'd say the Counselors are strong favorites over Tupelo, yet Tupelo is a very good team, competitive team. And I expect Tupelo to give a good matchup here. But obviously the Counselors are the defending champions, and they're at home. But the Counselors have to take care of business here. Tupelo could surprise them since the Counselors haven't seen the Titans in a few years. But Very interested to see what will happen in that game. That game will be live, Laura Willen, on the TSJW Network YouTube channel on Counselors TV. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button to the TSJW Network YouTube channel. November 4th, on the Monday, we got the PCA Paladins and the Macomb Gators. So those two teams are going to match up. And that game will be down in Summit, Mississippi. We got 18U girls action and 18U boys action. So in 18U girls, I do think PCA is a strong favorite over Macomb. Macomb's still kind of building up that girls program. Not quite there yet. They took a very tough loss to the Counselors, losing by over 40 points. I do think PCA will take that win on the road. I mean, PCA's probably dropped a little bit in girls basketball, but I do think that they will be able to handle their business there in Summit. 18U boys action. This will be very interesting, and I think this may be the game of the week, and I'm very interested to see what happens in this game. PCA Paladins and the Macomb Gators. And PCA would be the favorite in this ball game, but the Gators look very good against the Counselors. And you can go watch that game. Again, I remind you, on the TSJW Network YouTube channel, subscribe, turn your notifications on. We got a lot of stuff coming up on this channel in regards to MSAHA basketball. If you are interested in MSAHA basketball, this is your place. This is your channel. Subscribe and turn on the notifications right now. Also, check out the website. That's tsjwnetwork.net. Follow us on Instagram as well. You get a lot of updates on Instagram at TSJW Network. Definitely check us out. That is very important if you want to keep up with homeschool basketball in Mississippi. But PCA and Macomb, I'd say PCA are the favorites. PCA has been the team to beat for the last many years, 5-6 years. But even before that, they were up there in the top 3 in the conference. Every year they're in the top 3 in the conference. PCA is the standard. So I would definitely give them the edge over Macomb, but the thing is that Macomb's got the height. They've got a height advantage. They've got a height advantage over every team in the MSAHA. And they have good ball handling. They really were able to handle it against the Counselors. Counselors turned them over a lot, but in comparison, they did a pretty good job taking care of the ball. Their defense was good. So definitely interested to see what happens in that game. I'm very interested to see what happens in that game. That'll be one to look out for. November 5th on the Tuesday. Also be election night, but going to be playing basketball. See, look, sometimes the priorities just need to be straight, you know what I mean? Presidential election or Laurel and Meridian. Now, I take Laurel and Meridian every single time. I don't know what you're talking about. Election? Psh. Laurel Nighthawks and the Meridian Flyers. That will be on November 5th. So we got girls action starting off. I'm very interested to see what happens here because Laurel, I would say Laurel's the favorite. Laurel's the favorite to win again. I mean, they still have girls that can play, plenty of girls that can play. Even a couple of starters from last year's team still on the team. Now they're head coached by a very good coach. They had Coach Sean last year who did a very good job. Now they got Coach Cliff back in. He's a champion. Very interested to see what happens with them. But Meridian, they're coached by a good coach as well, Coach Scott Sherman. And I think that they're beefing their team up a little bit. I think Meridian will give Laurel a pretty good game. And so I'm interested to see what happens there, too. That's 18U girls. On the 18U boys side, I think that might be interesting as well. I think Laurel has the edge over Meridian. Laurel did not lose. They didn't lose anybody from last year's team. They come back strong, and they were able to. And I failed to mention this, and that's unfortunate. Failed to mention the score between the Laurel Nighthawks and the Royal Hurricanes. Laurel Nighthawks defeated the Royal Hurricanes 69-39, rather. So the Laurel Nighthawks have a win as well. They beat the Royal Hurricanes, were able to handle them. But now Laurel and Meridian are going to play each other. And I'm just interested to see what happens there. And that'll be an interesting one. I think Laurel has the edge, but Meridian, they scrap and they claw. And they're a team with some talent as well. So that'll be interesting. That'll be from Hickory on November 5th. Laurel and Meridian. And that'll wrap up our upcoming games for the week. And that'll bring us to our closing thoughts for this MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show before we get to our interview with Coach Kevin Covert of the PCA Paladins. But I do want to say this, though, that this season should be very interesting. We're looking at both 18U divisions, And if we look on a more broad, in a more broad way, 18U girls, listen, when somebody wins the championship, you got to give them the benefit of the doubt until proven otherwise. And the Laurel Lady Nighthawks, which is their new name, they changed from Lady Hawks to Lady Nighthawks. The Laurel Lady Nighthawks are the defending champions, and they were the defending champions in dominant fashion. They won the championship 58-23. I mean, they dominated. So they were the best team last year, so until proven otherwise, I got to take Laurel in the 18U girls field. And obviously, I wouldn't actually take Laurel in the 18U girls field because I'm involved with the Muddy River Counselors girls basketball team, and I think we got us a good team. But if we're coming from a outside perspective, listen, you got to give Laurel their respect until they lose. And so that's where Laurel is. And as far as the counselors are concerned in 18U boys, it's the same thing. Counselors are the champions. You got to give them the respect until somebody challenges them and they lose. And Tupelo is going to try to challenge them on Saturday, and we're very interested in seeing it. That'll be live on Counselors TV, Lord willing. But that's what we're kind of looking at right now. This is the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show. Enjoy our interview with Coach Kevin Covert. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show. I am Trellis Williams, and right here with me, we are glad to be joined by Coach Kevin Covert of the PCA Paladins. He's the new head coach of the Paladins, a team that has been up in the upper echelon of MSAHA basketball for over a decade, and most recently winning the 2023 title for the MSAHA and 18U boys. And so we appreciate Kevin Covert, head coach of the Paladins, joining us. Thank you, Coach, for joining us.
Oh, yes, sir, Trellis. And let me say right off the bat, it's a pleasure for me to be here. My family watches your show regularly when it comes to MSHAA stuff, and appreciate what you do for our league. And I wanted to congratulate you. I heard you are married now.
That's right. That's right.
Trellis 2.0.
That's right. That's right. Thank you very much. So I just wanted to get started that so you guys have had 2 conference games so far this season. You're able to defeat the Meridian Flyers at home and beat the Jackson Victors on the road. You've also played some competition in the private school ranks, such as Lamar Christian that you played last night. Just kind of talk about some of the things that you've liked of what you've seen from your team.
Yeah, sure. And I want to begin on that note by shouting out to the previous coaches, Brian Cummins and Eric Singletary, and honestly, even back to Coach Chris Erickson, and all of the things that they've done for our program for PCA over the years. So me coming in, it's not like I had to start from scratch. It's basically pick up where they left off, and so a lot of the players we have on the team, in fact, just almost all of them have been somewhat of a part. Coming up through the ranks and have been under those coaches before. So it's been good. We had a good summer and some good fall practices, and got in some shape and worked on a lot of fundamental stuff coming in, but had the guys ready, and our games against Jackson and Meridian were both good games. I feel like they were closer than the score indicates. And I can tell you, based on some film that I got to see and some tape that I got to see from last season, even though we were unable to be a part of PCA last season, looking at some film, just trying to prepare for those games, both of those teams are improved. They're both a lot faster than they used to be. They're both a lot more aggressive and in shape. And those games were closer than the scores indicate.
Yes, and you know, it's good to see some good competition going around the league for sure. So last question was about what are some things that you liked of what you've seen, but what are some things you want to tighten up? Because one thing about your team is that you brought back some guys that were good from last year, adding back your son into the mix, which is a big game changer for your team as well, obviously. Also, you know, you're playing in the conference, and you lost some guys like Caden Cummins and Timmy Singletary, 2 guys that they were difference makers for the team last year that you're kind of losing, some guys with some experience. Just kind of talk about some things that you're trying to tighten up with the adjustments.
Sure. So losing guys is tough. You know, they have all that experience, and This is a good long season, and you end up playing all the tournaments, which we usually do, and going through, district and regionals and nationals and all that. It adds up to a lot of games, and these guys end up with just tons of court time experience.
Yeah.
And it's tough to replace that. And so this year we've moved up, obviously, some JV players into the varsity roles, and some of those guys have gotten, a lot of good playing time in the past, but now they're in that varsity role, carrying that weight, at the top of the division there. So it's something that we work on a lot. We want to be in shape. We want to be fundamentally sound, and that's the biggest important thing to me. Also, I want to say that we've got a good group of guys that they share the ball a lot. They're not ball hogs. They're not selfish, and they really have bought into a team concept, and that's one of the most important things. And one of the things too that was important to me coming in is I see this almost as a calling, and definitely as a ministry. And so our team spends time every practice. We go into scripture, we have devotions, we have prayer, and I think that just as much as coaching them up and talking about what a good teammate looks like and how good teammates act, and what does the Bible have to say about what kind of a teammate you should be, and all of those things in to work together to bring us closer as a team. And I've noticed the closer we get as a team off the court and in those practices, when it comes to game time, it really flows out of them on the court when it matters.
Definitely, that's a good segue here to just talking about culture of the team. And you have some guys on your team that have been there a little bit that could provide some good leadership. I know Tate Boggs is a senior, and he's it seems like a good culture guy. I mean, I know him personally. He seems like a good culture guy for sure. Just kind of talk about the team and the culture, and just kind of how vigilant you're trying to be about that culture. And you just kind of talked about it a little bit just then.
Yeah, Tate is obviously one of the leaders, and I've made him a captain this year. And Tate is an extremely hard worker. He's also an extremely conscientious person.
Yeah,
and he's definitely a spiritual leader as well on the team. And man, that just sort of encapsulates it. And he's our starting point guard, and a person that I lean on heavily as a coach, not just for, hey, be the general on the floor, but you're a leader on this team, and he understands that and accepts that role and embraces that role.
Yeah, so looking forward a little bit over the course of this season. Obviously, last year the PCA team lost in the MSAHA championship, finished second, and then in district play and in region play and nationals, kind of fell short in some situations than they did the year before. A couple years back, obviously winning the MSAHA, making championship for district, making some noise in the nationals, making the Division II championship, and those kind of things. Just kind of talk about some of the goals that you want this team to kind of reach this year.
Yeah, so as I look over the last couple of years, for sure, 2 years ago, we were blessed with those twin brothers, Titus and Collier, and they were just athletically gifted, and they took us a long way. And last year, sort of fell off a little bit. And so going into this season, our goals as a team, and we talk about them and we set them out, is that we want to do things God's way. We want to do things the right way. And we're going to ultimately leave the outcome up to him, but we're going to prepare well, and we're going to lean on him, and we're going to go where he takes us. And so that's sort of just the mindset that I'm putting in front of them, is that each of us individually are going to do our best to get in the best shape we can be. We're going to do our best individually to learn the plays, learn the concepts that are being put in front of us. And then together as a team, we're going to come together, and we're going to be brothers, and we're going to treat each other correctly. And I want all of that to flow into whatever the outcome is. And so obviously we want to win the MSHA conference championship. And I'm sure every coach that comes on this show would say the same. And I hope that is everybody's goal.
Yeah.
And so that's obviously one of our goals, and we want to go up from there. I don't know how far it can take us. We're not very deep this year, and so that's another reason I'm trying to get the guys in shape. But absolutely, we love being in the conference. We love the competition of it and the camaraderie of it. And let me just say too, and I won't get too long winded here, but we had an opportunity last night to step outside the conference, and it's a Christian school, and it's a school that we've played year after year, and I won't name them here, but the difference in playing against that school in that environment versus playing in our conference environment is night and day. And I don't mean athletically. I don't mean competition wise, even though it is pretty good competition. I just want to say that for our league, it's a pleasure to play like Meridian. We played Meridian last Saturday, and that was a good competitive game, and both
Yep.
teams wanted to win, and we're out there fighting. And if the ref makes a bad call, we're going to let him know about it and all that. But at the end of the game, we all come together, and there's friendship there. I had a good conversation with their assistant coach, Sean, and I got to meet him, and we chatted up for a while.
Yeah.
And there's just a camaraderie there, and a friendship, and a brotherhood within our conference that you just don't find, even though you're playing a Christian school. And so, even though some of the players last night that we were playing against, just really a poor representation of Christ, and I was proud of our guys, because what we're teaching them in practice showed through in that game. They restrained themselves. They behaved properly, and in the face of some of that, and they weren't going back and responding inappropriately to some of that. And so, as a coach, I mean, that's a goal of mine, and a goal for our team this year. And I think conference wide, I think that's pretty much every coach's goal as well for their team, and it shows through.
That's for sure. And so my last question is just next game you got Monday night on the road, taking on the Macomb Gators. Now the Gators, Macomb, just last night hosted the Muddy River Counselors and gave the Counselors a headache there at the beginning of the game. And they were able to stay close for a little while, had a 27-19 halftime score. Counselors were able to prevail and kind of get a little bit of separation from them. But the Gators have a lot of height on their team. They got a 6'5" and a 6'7" on their team, and then they've also got good ball handling really as well. So just kind of talk about preparation for a game like that, taking on a Macomb team that just joined the conference this year, and they join it strong.
Yeah, and thanks to the TSJW network going on the road for us, we were able to take a look at that game and check it out. And I was amazed at their height. It's incredible. And I listen. I welcome them to the league. Very, very happy that they've decided to join.
Yeah.
I heard you say last night on your show, or on your cast of the game, that they had played, I think, a few of the teams over the last couple of years. But I'm glad they made the decision to join. I think they'll be a wonderful addition. And it was great to see that they were competitive with last year's champion. I mean, you guys are the reigning champions, and you're the team everybody wants to beat now. And so they gave y'all a game, and that was interesting to see, and I'm happy about that. As far as preparing for them, we don't have that height. We have one guy that's up in that range, but not even quite I think as tall as some of them. So it'll be interesting. Some of our other guys are quite a bit shorter than that. So it was interesting to see on what that benefits me as a coach is I get to see what defense they ran against y'all. Not that means they'll run that against us, but it gives you an idea of what to sort of look at on what you're going to run against them on offense. But definitely will be a challenge Monday night. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, we appreciate you joining us right here on the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show. Thought it was a good discussion to start off our year with our shows. We appreciate you joining.
Sure. I appreciate you having me, Mr. Trellis.
Yep, thank you very much. And we'll have more right here on the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show in just a few moments. Yeah, and again, we do really appreciate Coach Kevin Covert for joining us on the first show of the new season, and we are very happy to hear from him. And the PCA Paladins will be an interesting team to follow, as they always are. They're always in the top of this league. Folks, we appreciate you joining us. This is the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show. I am Trellis Williams. Again, I want to remind you, right here on the TSJW Network YouTube channel, we've got a lot of stuff going on. We've got Muddy River Counselors basketball. We also have some MSAHA primetime games, and then we will announce those soon. We're looking forward to doing that as well. And then we have this show, the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show, so please be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn the notifications on. Follow us on Instagram at TSJW Network. You can do that as well right now. And then check out our website, tsjwnetwork.net, and that's where the scores, the standings, and the schedules are for the MSAHA Basketball Conference. Thank you all for joining us. This is the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show. And until next week, we out.